Hey, this is Andy here with Libertarian Revolution. And I'm at the Libertarian Party of California 2023 State Convention in Sacramento, and I'm catching up with somebody who I talked to and interviewed for this same channel at the Libertarian Party of California Convention in Long Beach back in 2018, and that is none other than Mr. Larry Sharpe, all the way from New York City, New York, New York.
That is correct.
Here to speak at the Libertarian Party of California Convention. Last time we talked, I believe you were in the midst of running for governor. Oh, wait, did you run for governor in 2018?
I did.
That is correct.
We were in the middle of it. Yes, we were.
Yes, yes. And I understand that in that election, I think you set a new record for the LP of New York.
We did.
For in terms of votes and getting the vote test to retain ballot status.
It was the first time that the Libertarian Party gained ballot access in New York State ever.
Yes.
And we got almost 100,000 votes. So yes, we broke a record.
Yes, yes. Now, as I understand it, in New York, when this party gains party status, the state committee of the party can opt to put the presidential candidate on the ballot without having to petition.
That is correct, yes. What it has been every single time until this recent time is that once someone achieved ballot access or party status, they retained it for the full cycle, 4 years.
4 years.
So for 4 years, they were able to put whomever they needed to on any local or state or federal ballot. They were able to put that person on there. From president to city council, didn't matter.
So you're saying that the lower level offices in New York didn't have to petition either?
That's correct.
Because I know the Democrats and Republicans, they actually do have petitions for their...
to be official, you do have to petition.
Okay.
But the amount is so insanely low. It is like 3% of the registered people in your town. So generally speaking, you can do of your party.
Okay.
Which means in most cases, we're talking 5 signatures, literally.
Okay.
So do we have to officially? Yes.
Okay.
But you could go to one Libertarian Party event and get all your signatures.
So yeah, but
it's the equivalent of not having to.
But did that apply to the presidential candidate? Because I think the presidential candidate could be exempted from it. Or is that correct?
No, you had to get it for that too. But again,
it was really
same
easy.
Small amount.
It was super easy.
Super easy.
Okay, and so then after you did well, making a name for yourself in New York and
not
nationally, but you were making a name, and I think you are one of the reasons that you and probably some others, but I think it was mostly you, scared the establishment, and they were so afraid of you getting popular that they changed the ballot access law in New York to make it way more difficult.
To make it literally impossible. When I say impossible, I mean impossible. 3 people tried to get on the ballot. 1 was me. 2nd was a sitting congressman. 3rd was a multimillionaire worth more than $40 million. None of us could make it.
Yes.
Literally, this is the first time in 80 years that there was not an independent governor candidate on the ballot in New York State. They literally made it impossible. They basically outlawed all but the 2 major parties.
Yeah, so what they did was they tripled the signature requirement. It used to be 15,000 signatures, and I believe there was a 6-week circulating window between July and August. Is that correct?
Yes, it was in a time when there were actually fairs. You could go to
festivals.
You can go to nice weather.
More people outside.
They decided, literally when we still had COVID lockdown protocols, that they would go to 6 weeks, 45,000 signatures, and moved it early spring to where in New York State we still have snowstorms.
Yes, and that's bad on multiple levels.
Yep.
One thing is, the Libertarian Party generally doesn't have its convention until the last weekend of May.
Correct.
So now we have to use stand-in candidates.
Correct.
We have to put somebody who's not really the candidate on there, and that just makes the petitioning a little bit awkward for anybody who looks at it. They think that person's a Libertarian Party candidate for president, and they're actually just a fill-in until we nominate the real candidate.
Yep.
So, but then, so 45,000 signatures in 6 weeks is extremely difficult. Now,
it is literally impossible.
Yeah, it's now I've been involved in ballot access for over 2 decades, and I can tell you the Libertarian Party has successfully completed drives that big or larger in the past. However,
not in 6
and
weeks.
This is a big heaver.
Yes,
not in 6 weeks.
Yes.
We had in some cases a year and a half, in some cases even longer. I will tell you the closest equivalent to this was Texas, 2004. The LP had lost ballot access in Texas. We had to do a ballot drive there, and it required 45,450 valid signatures, but they gave you 90 days to collect them.
Better.
So that's about double
Yes.
what you had in Texas.
Yes.
Or in Texas,
In New
what
York.
you had in New York.
Yes.
Now, as I understand it, in New
That's
York...
a good point. I want to bring it up, right? People say 45,000 isn't that much. I agree with them, but it's your point. The timing is what matters. Could I have gotten 45,000 valid signatures? Yes. To your point, give me 2 months in the summer.
Yeah.
Right? Give me 2 months, 3 months in the summer, done. I will get 45,000 signatures. I'll do it.
Well, what they should have done if they wanted to be more reasonable,
Well, they didn't want
is
to.
oh, I know that, but
Yes,
what they should have done is say we're going to triple the signature requirement, but we're also going to triple the circulating
100%.
time to 18 weeks.
Correct.
And that still would have been tough, but it would have been a lot more doable.
It's
I can tell you, I know about the ballot access. I've been studying ballot access for over 2 decades, and I can tell you that this is one of the worst ballot access laws in the country.
Yep.
And in terms of like number of signatures needed in a short period of time, by that standpoint, it's actually the worst ballot access
Yes.
law. There's some other states have some various bad laws, but anyway, on top of that, I believe in New York, a New York voter can only sign for one candidate, a petition for one candidate for each office.
Yep.
So that's really bad too, because in some states what they'll do is say the Green Party has a candidate, Libertarian Party, maybe somebody else, and they can kind of combine petitioning armies, and the petition circulators can carry 2 or 3 or 4 petitions, and it helps the circulators earn more money, and then it also it helps the candidates, and there's also less confusion with the voters, because a lot of times a voter doesn't remember what petition they signed, which candidate, and a lot of times they'll walk away. They'll just like, I already signed the petition. You're like, but wait, that's the Libertarian one, and they're already gone before you tell them. So the fact that you can't do that in New York makes it even worse.
Absolutely.
Now New York has another law that's bad, which y'all ought to consider challenging, and that is the pay by the hour instead of pay by the signature.
Also embarrassingly bad.
Yes.
We do that. It just crushes us. It ensures that people will take advantage of us, that they'll just walk around for 8 hours, do nothing. We have to pay them and get no signatures.
Yes.
It is just embarrassingly bad.
Yes, and I had actually suggested years ago that the LP file a lawsuit against that in New York. Nobody's done it.
We can't afford it. Do you understand that I spent almost $100,000 trying to just get back on the ballot?
Yes.
I spent $300,000 trying to get signatures. How much money can I raise in one campaign?
Yeah, well, I would say the national part. The national part, yeah.
Where's the money coming from?
Yeah,
I can't go back to the well.
Oh, I know. But they should have done, I mean, this should have been done years ago.
Yeah.
But anyway, there was a law in New York that banned out-of-state circulators.
I remember that one.
And that one, the LP and I believe some other groups finally challenged it after years, and they filed a lawsuit and they won. And so now, if you're not from New York, you can go into New York and you can collect signatures. And so that would allow you to recruit people from other states and therefore increase your potential pool of petition signature gatherers.
Right.
But anyway, moving forward with this onerous ballot access law in New York, do you think you're ever going to run for office again?
I don't know, to be very full with you. This was a brutal campaign filled with multiple defeats. And in the end, we just got our ass kicked, right? I mean, I really wish that there was some positive thing I could pull from this. In 2018, in the end, we got ballot access. We, were able to run candidates. I mean, even though it was a hard campaign, an expensive campaign, there was a payoff at the end. No payoff this time. Just pure punishment. So I'm still reeling from it. I really can't answer that question right now.
Yeah. Oh, about your 2018, something I have to bring up is the Joe Rogan interview.
Yep.
That was great that you got on Joe Rogan. I believe last time I checked, that video had over 500,000 views, which is a lot. Now, Joe is, he's claimed to be a libertarian in the past. I don't know if he really is or not. He seems like a cool guy, but he seemed like he was like a really tough interviewer. He was breaking your balls.
This was my fault before. I take responsibility for this. To be forward with you. Some of you are going to be shocked to hear this. In 2018, I didn't know how popular he was. I didn't know how popular he was. I remember Joe, I'm to my age, I remember Joe from The Man Show. That's what I remembered him from back in 2018. And they were like, you going on Joe Rogan? I'm like, that's great, is that good? And they were like, this is amazing. I said, oh, okay, great, wonderful. Okay, let's go. So literally he was in California then. I'm campaigning every day in New York State. One day I literally get in an airplane in the morning, fly over to California, go do a show and fly back. I was so accustomed to speaking to New Yorkers about New York issues that when I was talking to him, I simply wasn't in the right headspace. So we were talking past each other. He was talking about, well, what about teachers and such? And in my mind, I wasn't getting that. Well, Joe's thinking about the entire country. And there are parts of this country where teachers are treated horribly, to where their pay is low, they're in trouble. Not in New York. You're not a millionaire if you're a teacher in New York. You're not. But you get paid a living wage. You get paid around $70,000 or $80,000 in New York to be a teacher. That's a living wage. You're surviving. You've got a strong union. You're not in a big problem if you're a New York State teacher. There's other issues you deal with, like administrators and stuff like that. But when it comes to pay, you're doing okay if you're a teacher in New York State. So when he was talking about unions and teachers, I was like, what are you talking about? That makes no sense at all. I wasn't realizing that there are parts of the country to what are you saying made a lot of sense. It just made no sense in New York, and my head was not there. And that's why we talked past each other.
Well, overall, it was still a plus. I'll tell you, the feedback I got from people, and I talked to a lot of people who watched that interview, overall, it was still good because people liked you, and it wasn't a train wreck. It just seemed like Joe was kind of, he was trying to be Mr. Tough Interviewer that day.
Again, this was me. I should have been clear on what I was saying. I should have said, Joe, what I'm talking about is New York State. That's what I should have done.
Yeah.
And he'd been like, oh, New York State's different. I'd be like, yes, New York State, that's how it works. It's not an issue in New York State. And what he was talking about wasn't an issue in New York State, which is why I took such umbrage, because the thing he was talking about in New York State is not a problem for New York State teachers. They have different issues. That issue is not one they handle.
You've gotten a lot of other media coverage. You've been on Kennedy, the Kennedy Montgomery. And what are some of the other big media appearances you've had?
Glenn Beck, Ebro in the Morning. Sure, Dave Rubin. So a bunch of them.
And so
I got mentioned by Sean Hannity.
Yes.
So that was good.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, I think you should actually kind of almost take it as a badge of honor that the ruling establishment in New York was so afraid of your growing popularity that they had to change the law so you couldn't get on the ballot.
And then drop $100,000 in lawsuits to throw me off the ballot.
Yes. And then, now as I understand, weren't there a couple lawsuits over the ballot access law in New York? I believe there was one filed in like 2018 or 2019 or something.
And they all just failed. They were bad lawsuits that didn't work.
And then you filed another one.
We just kept trying to go. We kept trying to make things happen. It was a disaster. We actually went to court a total of 9 total times, lost every time.
Now, have they given you any explanation as to why? They haven't said why they won't even.
Yes.
Like if they want to raise it to 45,000 signatures, okay, do it. But at least give me more time to collect them. I think it should be a minimum of 18 weeks, if not maybe 6 months or something.
I'll answer. Literally, a judge said openly, he said, the whole point of this is to make sure nobody gets in the ballot who can't win.
Wow, that's
his exact goal. I literally said in court, 500,000 New Yorkers every single cycle vote for an independent candidate. 500,000. They know that candidate is probably not going to win, which means by default it is political speech. It is literally them speaking against the establishment. They didn't think I was going to win when they voted for me. They voted for me anyway to say, look, this is what I feel. And when you take me off the ballot, you are removing their freedom of speech. You are attacking their constitutional ability to have a vote. You are hurting them. You are causing harm. And the judges said, I don't care.
Yeah, well, another bad thing about this is they also made it harder to retain ballot access.
Yes.
So it used to be like 50,000 votes, which was roughly 1% of the vote to retain, to get the party status. Then they raised it to 3%?
They raised it to 2% or 130,000 votes, whichever is higher.
Okay. And then now back to that, I want to compare it to the ballot drive we did in Texas back in 2004, which I went to Texas and worked on, and it was a pretty monumental effort. Now this is way back in 2004. The Libertarian Party spent more than 200,000, maybe 250,000 on this drive. They needed 45,000 valid signatures in 90 days. Okay. Now Texas had a bad law that's actually, I guess I'm almost afraid to say this because it might give the people in New York and California an excuse to adopt this bad law in those states, but in Texas, they have what's called a primary screen out, where if a voter votes in a primary, then they can't sign a petition to place a minor party or independent on the ballot. Yeah, there was one other state that had that law. West Virginia used to have it, but it got thrown out in court in West Virginia. I don't know if it's been challenged in Texas or not, but if it hasn't, it ought to be. Anyway, so the minor parties and independent candidates can start petitioning the day after the Texas primary. So we had to screen those people out. There was another law in Texas that you could only sign for one political party and then one independent candidate for each office. Now, the only political party that had a serious petition drive going on was the Libertarian Party. At the time, Ralph Nader was running as an independent.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. Because Nader was running as an independent, a Texas voter could sign the Nader petition and the LP petition because the LP was running as a party. So, this is my point I was just building up to. The LP combined forces with the Nader petitioners. So we had the LP petitioning army collecting signatures for Nader, and we had the Nader petitioning army collecting signatures for the LP.
Nice.
Now, now Texas also had a very bad law for independents.
Hold on, we had the opposite problem in New York State.
I know.
Right, which means you can't do that.
I know.
When the Unite Party decided to stab me in the back and put somebody else on their line, they then took my petitioners and paid them more money.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to get the same petitioners, I had to pay them more. I was paying my petitioners up to $30 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
$30 an hour. Mm-hmm. And most of them were not delivering.
Mm-hmm.
So I was paying $30 an hour for nothing. Mm-hmm. I was just throwing money away.
Yes.
So yes, because in New York State, you can't pay by signature, to pay by the hour.
Yes.
So if people don't do any good work, it doesn't matter, they get paid.
And the pay by the signature, just to let you know, has been thrown out in court in multiple states. It got thrown out in Colorado. Now there's some states where it hasn't been thrown out, like Oregon, but there are several states. Ohio tried to go to pay by the hour on petitions, and it was thrown out in court there also. So I do think that
New York State judges are an embarrassment.
Yeah. What about the federal court? What if you go to federal court?
We did, and they tell us to go to hell too.
Okay.
Yes. No. If you're in New York State and you're a judge, you are by default a state lackey. Mm-hmm. That is what you are if you are a judge in New York State. Mm-hmm. You don't care about the individual person. That's not what you worry about. You worry about the state. You support the state against the individual. Mm-hmm. That is what New York State judges do. Well,
moving forward into the 2024 presidential election, the LP would like to get 50 state plus DC ballot access. And we're going to have a monumental task on our hands getting on the ballot in New York. Now, I think right now somebody with the LP Ballot Access Committee was talking about something like $390,000 or $300,000 or $400,000. I think this drive could easily cost the New York drive. Just an estimate.
$500,000.
I think a $500,000 minimum. That might even be a low estimate, actually.
Not if I run it.
Okay.
And the reason why I say it is, I have made all of the mistakes already.
Yes.
So I will not make those. I know what vendors to use. I know what places to go. I know what things to do now. I basically made all the mistakes.
Yes.
So, and I know how to prep it now, which I did not know how to prep something this massive before. This is the first time I do something so massive. We never did it before.
Yeah.
So our prep was not good enough.
Yes.
At all. But it will be this time.
Yeah.
So yes, with $500,000 we can do it, but only because of all the lessons that I learned that I will now do so much better this time.
Yeah, well, full disclosure, I am now appointed to the Libertarian National Committee Ballot Access Committee, and I definitely want to help you all with that planning and prep work in New York. And I think one thing we need to do is try to recruit libertarians especially libertarians in surrounding states to come to New York, even if they can only come for a few days or weekend, whatever they can do, and to come into New York, because otherwise we're not going to get on the ballot there. And here's the bad thing. We want to get 50 state plus DC ballot access because that makes our presidential candidate look a lot more credible in the eyes of the public and the media. And if we miss any state, even a low population state, like let's say North Dakota, South Dakota, Alaska, Hawaii, that looks bad. But if we miss New York, which is the fourth most populated state of the country, and it has the most populated city in New York City with the most populated metropolitan area in the country, it makes us look really bad
100%.
If we're not on the ballot in New York. We don't look like we're a professional, nationally organized political party. And not only that, it will really hurt our presidential vote because New York is such a high population state. Just even 1% of the vote or 0.5% of the vote in New York could cost us tens of thousands of votes.
Absolutely.
And so this needs to be a massive priority. And like I said, if you could get it done for 500,000, great. I think it could, potentially it could go, I could see it going 750,000, maybe even a million, depending on various factors.
We're not this time.
Okay.
The reason why is there'll be no other competition.
Okay, well.
There'll be no other competition in New York State to get in the ballot.
Okay, here's something you may not know about. There is a new political party that's kind of being formed by various Democrats and Republicans who are kind of establishment centrist types. Have you heard about the No Labels Party?
I know No Labels, absolutely. They're not going to be able to raise, they're not going to be able to get on ballot in New York State.
Well, here's the thing. There was a version of No Labels Party that came out back in 2011 to 2012. They were called Americans Elect. I don't know if you remember.
I don't.
No, they never ran a They paid to get on the ballot in a bunch of states. They got ballot access in like 37 states. And then in May of 2012, they decided to drop out of the race.
Yep.
Why? Because they were happy with Obama and Mitt Romney as the candidates.
Yep.
Now, No Labels Party has said that they're around May of 2024, they're going to evaluate the situation. And if they're happy with who the Democrats and Republicans pick, then they're not going to proceed.
Doesn't matter. They have to have it in April.
Oh, I know that. I know that.
It doesn't matter.
Well, I was just getting to that. I was actually just getting to that.
Yeah.
This party does have big money behind it. It's being
They
backed
can have
by
all the money they want. They're going to have to do two things. Number one, they're going to have to actually be able to get on the ground and get people to do it. The people who tried it last time, as I said, one was a sitting congressman who raised millions of dollars and had his own money, and had the Republican Party behind him. The other one was a multimillionaire worth $40 million. Both of them couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So you're telling me No Labels out of 50 states is going to drop $500,000 or more, $750,000, because they don't have a guy like me who knows how to do it. They're going to drop $70,000 to get on a ballot.
I think conceivably, well, we'll see what happens. But I'll tell you this: the No Labels Party right now is dropping a lot of money, and they've gotten ballot access in a bunch of states already. Now, what they're going to do come 2024, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that the Democrats and Republicans are likely to nominate a couple of establishment lackeys again, and they'll probably drop out of the race.
Yep.
This is like basically, if they don't like somebody, if they think that the D or the R is going to go, slightly off script, so to speak, then they don't want that person as a candidate. So we're going to have to see what happens with the Ds and the Rs. Right. But I'm just saying this No Labels Party could be a potential threat. Now, I'll tell you this. Here's something that the No Labels Party, they may have a lot of money, but here's something that they don't have, what we have in the Libertarian Party. And that is, we have a lot of volunteers.
Yep, absolutely.
We have a lot of volunteers. We have various people such as myself, and now you've got some experience as well in ballot access. And that helps bring the costs down. I mean, volunteers on a petition drive, even just simple things like counting signatures, checking validity on signatures, that stuff, when you have volunteers, because if you don't have volunteers to do it, you got to pay people to do it.
100%.
And so that's where the LP has an advantage. Anyway, so you think, okay, I asked you about if you're going to run for office again. When I talked to you yesterday, you said that you may be willing to put your name on the ballot as a stand-in candidate.
Yeah, I would have to, right? Because the Libertarian Party is going to pick their candidate until late May.
Yes.
And we will have to already be done by early May.
Okay.
So I will put my name on the ballot if need be. I'm assuming I will have to officially be running for president in New York State only until the LP picks its party, its nominee. Then I can swap it out.
Are there any other state offices up in New York next year, like is U.S. Senate up or anything?
Maybe, I don't know. Doesn't matter.
Okay, but you're not interested in running for
why
U.S.
would
Senate.
To be very forward with you and anyone listening, in New York State, in 2024, nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. Don't run for anything else in New York State. It does not matter. All that matters in 2024 in New York State in 2024 is the presidential race, because that gets us ballot access. Everything else is a colossal waste of time. Do not run for any of the office in New York State in 2024. It is a waste of your time, a waste of your energy. Spend all your time on a presidential candidate.
Well, the reason I was asking that is I believe in New York, can't you put the Senate candidate on the same
Don't care.
form?
Do not want them on the form. No.
Okay.
No. I cannot be clearer than this.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
It is a colossal waste of time.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Anytime you spend talking about a senator, you're not talking about our presidential candidate. I need 130,000 votes, or I don't get ballot access.
Okay.
No senator.
Okay.
No congressman. Nothing else.
Okay.
President in New York State in 2024, and nothing else.
Now,
I need every single person talking about that person. I need those votes and those signatures. I'm going to be very clear about this.
Okay.
If we don't get ballot access in 2024
we're
in
screwed.
New York State, this state is done. Move out. It's over. This is literally the threat of the threat of the threats. Your vanity run to be congressman, go away. President in New York State in 2024 is all that matters. Nothing else does. Your vanity is irrelevant. Shove it up someplace. Don't put it in my face. Go someplace else. Run in a different state. New York
Is
all that matters.
is the vote test in New York for retaining access? Is it governor and president?
Correct.
Now, didn't it used to be just governor?
Correct.
Okay. So now, but it used to get you 4 years.
Correct.
Of status, and they lowered
Yes.
it to 2.
And yes, all those things are true, which is
Okay.
why I'm so adamant on this. We've never done this before, and we typically don't do well in presidential elections. We don't do well in New York State. I can't take even one vote away. So no.
Okay.
Presidential election only. Nothing else. I don't want $1 going to anyone else's campaign in New York State. I don't want one person talking about anyone else in New York State except for the presidential candidate in New York State.
Who do you think? I mean, do you have any thoughts on a Libertarian presidential nominee? We don't really know yet. I guess it's too
No,
early.
we got a couple
There's some
running now.
names that have been talked about.
We
but
just
don't
had
know.
I just had a forum
Debate.
on my show. Lars Mapstead, Mike Termount, Joshua Rodriguez, and Chase Oliver.
Okay.
So I know those 4 are running. They're up there doing. Others have announced, but those were the top 4.
Yeah, some
I think, at
people.
the moment.
Yeah, I guess there's been talk of Justin Amash, but I don't
Justin
think
Amash,
he's
Dave Smith, right, they
and
all might run,
There's
but
rumors, but we don't know yet.
so
too
far-
early in the process.
So I don't think it's too late at all.
Well, too early in the process for us to say who
I
we
think
don't know.
they should be announcing now.
Yes, I
right?
agree.
So I don't think it's too early, but
I
to be
agree.
forward,
And I take it you're
they
not
haven't
interested
yet.
in announcing
I am
the
not
president.
interested.
Okay.
No.
So
I
don't ask Larry Sharpe to run this
No.
time. Maybe
No,
sometime
no.
down the road.
Maybe.
but not
Look,
now.
I'm open to the future. You never know. I'm
Yeah.
open to the future.
2028,
Maybe.
2032. Okay,
Maybe.
we'll look at
open
it.
to it all.
Yeah,
Not 2024.
yeah.
I have a mission in New York State to achieve in 2024, and it is not running for president. It is getting ballot
access.
That is my mission.
And hopefully we can retain ballot access.
Correct.
Yes. Okay.
That is my mission, not anything else.
And that's a really good mission, and I hope to help you with the ballot access committee, and get you better support, because I don't think you got adequate support
Now,
last
I got
time.
screwed last time.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll have to agree. I think that the party needs to get itself in better shape. And we missed a goal. We missed a massive opportunity in New York.
100%.
Because first of all, I think you did a good job as a candidate. And not only are you a good candidate, you're a hard-working candidate.
Yes.
And part of being a good candidate is being a hard-working candidate. We have some candidates who get on the ballot and they're more of a paper candidate.
Right.
But where they don't really do that much campaigning. But when you ran, you were actively campaigning. It was a real. Nobody can say you didn't run a real campaign.
Correct.
You're out speaking, and that's what we need. We need people who are going to go out and run a real campaign.
Yep.
And so, if you would have made the ballot, I think you would have built on the momentum that you
100%.
had from your previous campaign.
Yep.
I think no other third-party candidate or independent or alternative candidate would have been on the ballot.
Yep.
And there's a very good chance you would have gotten 3% or more of the vote.
100%.
And then we wouldn't have to worry about president this
Correct.
time.
That was my entire point. Yes.
Yes,
And that's
so-
what I tried to tell OP, and they did not care.
Yeah, that's well.
And they did not care.
Well, we have a lot of new leadership now, and I'm going to do whatever I can do to make sure that mistake does not happen again. Do you have any closing statements you'd like to make?
LarrySharpe.com.
All right, that's it. This is Larry Sharpe signing off for Libertarian Revolution. Thanks, Larry.
All right.
All right, good interview.
Sorry it took so long. I apologize.
Yeah, that's okay.